Yes. Hi, welcome to the class. This is Akshay. We are doing this class for 11th time today, and I'm hosting this class, online class, and thank you for joining us. And this is Megumi. She covers, supports our customers like in North America. So if you're watching from North America, if like you may be like interested in talking to her shortly. And today we are doing Shio Ramen, which is like very, very exciting because Shio Ramen is like something very, very simple, but it has like really like depth to it. So like, we are very excited to talk about it today. And so let's get into the lecture. And but like before we get into the lecture, let me talk about a little bit about like our company and for those of you like who don't know much about us. And like we are 45-year-old like manufacturer of noodle making machines. So noodle machines, these noodle machines are designed to do Japanese noodles, udon, soba, ramen, or like other types of noodles as well, Chinese noodles, pasta, and like some dumplings, skin as well. And we've been running noodle schools like for 20 years. Noodle schools on ramen, udon, and soba. So we like these noodle schools like teach production of soup, toppings, noodles from scratch, and we even like teach operation of noodle restaurants and management even. And we have customers like using our machines in different countries, in 61 countries and counting. We have offices in Japan, 8 offices in Japan. Like we have offices in Seoul, Korea. We have offices in Singapore, Netherlands, USA. We have partners in different countries as well. And so we are basically a group of noodle experts who help our customers develop their own noodle businesses, noodle products. So if you're thinking doing something about like with noodles, then yeah, please feel free to contact us. So we're talking about Shio Ramen, like which is like very, very exciting. And what we're gonna talk about is, so we're gonna do that lecture part like just about like 30 minutes, and then you're gonna make noodles from scratch on the noodle making machines, and we're gonna do the cooking. So we have a kitchen over there, like, and we have our instructors for school, and then they're gonna show us some Shio Ramen dishes, and we're going to do a FAQ session. So if you have some questions during the class, please send them in the comments. So before getting into a lecture of Shio Ramen, let me just briefly talk about ramen in general. Ramen has been like rapidly growing across the world, even though it has only like 100 years like history. It's still evolving. There's just like seems like something new emerging every year, and it's highly customizable. Has like noodle components, soup components, topping components, and then so you can customize them very like flexibly. And ramen has like something like that drives people crazy. So that's why it's been growing rapidly across the world. And so we can assure you that if you're thinking about like doing some business, like ramen has like big potential for your business. Before talking about Shio Ramen in general, let me just briefly explain like what ramen soup is like. So ramen soup has like three components, like base stock. So base stock is basically foundation of ramen soup. So base stock like is made out of like pork, chicken, seafood, like vegetables, and other types. So you have to like really make this base stock like good in order to make ramen soup. And the oil, we call it flavored oil. And this oil adds flavor, like it's aroma to the ramen soup. And this is very important, like aroma. Good if you have like ramen soup that has like good aroma, then that makes it like taste good, like because the human beings taste food from the smell like, as well. So it needs to have like good combination. And the flavored oil, are made out of like garlic, chili, and seafood and other types of like animal ingredients. And the motodare, it's it's basically like a base sauce that basically determines the taste of the soup. It's like I'm gonna talk more about it like in the next slide. So before talking about what the shio ramen is, I wanna talk about like what the salt shio motodare is. So motodare, like moto means like basically like a base or like original in Japanese. Dare means sauce or seasonings that add taste and flavor to otherwise bland based stocks. The basic types of like tare are shoyu, shio, and miso. A shio tare like is made out of like certain ingredients such as seafood, um, and then you basically make salt water that's like very salty, and then you're cooking, you're heating these this such like ingredients like seafood, like kelp and other ingredients in this salt water. And usually the ingredients are cooked. So like you're basically infusing this umami from this for flavor from the ingredients into the salt water. So usually more than one type of ingredients is infused to have like complex flavor. For example, like clam, shrimp, and that, etc. After infusion, the motodare is rested for a few weeks to round off the sharpness of the salt. So this is basically what the salt like shio motodare is. And so what's shio ramen? Shio ramen is a noodle soup that's made of like adding shio salt tare to the stock, which is typically made of chicken, pork, or other types like seafood. The stock can be clear or cloudy. For the stock that's clear, it's not made by like boiling down the ingredients like tonkotsu or pork bone broth. So it is usually clear or translucent. The taste tends to be light. Stock, which is like stock density is low. Use of salt tare flavored oil is limited to the ones that do not overpower the flavor of the stock. Or there can be like shio ramen with a cloudy soup, which is rich or strong in taste and flavor. So as long as the shio tare is like main seasoning of the soup, it is considered shio ramen soup. And because shio ramen uses such a simple seasoning, salt tends to be light and subtle with, like some people like call it like elegant flavor from the ingredients, typically chicken, seafood such as clam, kelp, fish, etc. These may be cooked at a low heat for some time to or get extract like umami from these ingredients. The soup taste is easily affected by other components such as noodles. I'm going to talk about this more about this later when we talk about noodles. So like shoyu ramen can be like very simple, subtle, but like have a depth in taste and flavor. So it is simple, but it's difficult to make it good. Okay, let's talk about the noodles. So noodles are suitable for shio ramen, and so I've been using this chart like to describe the different types of noodles. And let me just like briefly explain what this chart works. And horizontal line, this is basically like a moisture content of the noodles, like how much liquid is contained in noodles. So vertical line is protein content of the flour that's used to make these noodles. Basically the higher the protein, harder the noodle texture, and then lower the moisture content, the harder the noodle texture. And on the right hand side, you may be able to see this noodle size that kind of starts from the top to the down to 5 millimeter and top like 1 millimeter, like thin noodle, thick noodle. And so if you can notice the like green circle that is in the top left corner, like that says like Hakata ramen noodles, that's low in hydration ratio, like but high in protein content. So this is a hard noodle, but like for the noodle size, this is very thin, like 1.1 millimeter, 1.3 millimeter. Like if you look at the yellow circle like that says tsukeme noodles, dipping noodles, that's high in protein, high in water content, and but low in protein content flour. So this is soft noodle. but like, this is a thick noodles, like it's thick and soft noodles. So this is a you can have like noodles that are like thick and hard noodle, but like it's be like hard to eat. You can have like noodles that are like thin and soft noodle, but like it's you don't like good noodle texture. You don't have like bite. But like I've looked around like and then it seems like Shio Ramen tends to be it's like have like very broad like area like that. There are many variations and like there may be like some Shio Ramen that's like hard and thin, or like there are maybe like some Shio Ramen noodles that are like thick and soft. Okay, let's talk about ingredients. So ingredients like the most important ingredients is the wheat flour, and we already talked about like a bit about like wheat flour, the protein in the flour. Protein in the flour determines the hardness of the noodle texture, and it's the for the Shio Ramen noodles typically. Um, I think many Shio Ramen noodles has uses this flour that's like around 11%. So it's kind of medium, so like hardness, and for ramen noodles. And ash content is like basically how much minerals it contains in the flour. And then the higher the ash, the darker the color, the stronger the flavor of the wheat. Um, yeah, this value is like usually low ash content for Shio ramen noodles, but but like higher the ash, usually the stronger the flavored wheat. So if you want to, you don't really want to care about the color, but like care more about the flavor of wheat, then you may want to use flour that has high ash content. The viscosity is like basically how elastic noodles become. It's like higher the viscosity, that more elastic the noodles, and basically the higher the better noodle texture. So, but like this value is not shown on the product label, but you have to actually measure it on a special device. And we have this device at our HQ here. And so if you have like some flowers you want to test, then you can send it to us, and then we can send the result back to you for free of charge. So protein, ash, viscosity, these three things you need to have in mind when trying to look for good flow for Shio Ramen noodles. The water, so we already talked about water, like hydration ratio, like how much water you need to have like in the noodles. So basically, like the less water, the harder the noodle texture, but like stronger the wheat flavor. So if you want to have the noodles that has like strong wheat flavor, then you may want to consider like reducing the amount of water that you add to the noodles. Um, then the other aspect like water is that like you want to use soft water, like especially for cooking noodles and cooking the broth. And because when we cook noodles, for example, like in hard water contains like a lot of minerals like magnesium, like calcium, and when cooking noodles, these ingredients like constantly needs to get out to cooking water. And in exchange, the noodles absorbs water, and so the noodles gets cooked. But then in cooking of hard water, like which has like a lot of minerals in it, there's less room for these ingredients to be get out to. So it takes time, right? It takes time when you cook the noodles for a long time, then the surface melts, and then the noodles is dissolved in the cooking water. So like you get less cooked noodles from hard water. And the same thing like cooking the pork bones, making stocks, then it's yes, there's nothing really good about like using hard water like when cooking noodles stock. So, but if you have to work with the hard water, then you should use water softener. The kansi is something like you have to have in your noodles to be called ramen. It's a definition of ramen noodles in Japan. And kansi, like there are many variations. But like if you for noodles that are expected to be like consumed like within like 1 week or so, we use the this type of currency that's basically a combination of potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. Potassium carbonate is like hardens the noodle texture, changes the noodle color to yellow, and a stronger currency smell. Sodium carbonate does exactly opposite. And we blend these at the different ratios for different noodle sizes, for example. So if you can remember the chart we talked about, the thinner, we want to make it harder. So we want to increase the amount of potassium carbonate. We want to make it thicker, we want to make it softer. So we want to increase the amount of sodium carbonate. Like for Shio Ramen noodles, Shio Ramen noodles have like the soup that's like very sensitive and very um, you can very easily affected by like the smell, the constant smell. That may be like unpleasant to many people. So some ramen shops actually reduce the amount of kansi that they add to the noodles, or because potassium carbonate generates this stronger kansi smell, so they reduce the amount of the potassium carbonate and increase the amount of sodium carbonate to have like less of the kansi smell to affect the noodle flavor, I mean soup flavor. Okay, so let's talk about production processes. So this slide just explains the production of dough. So dough for shio ramen noodles. And on this slide, the most important process is the weighing of ingredients. And so we weigh each ingredients like at the right ratio because we want to be consistent in quality of what we make. And so like, we can recreate the same thing like over and over. And so we weigh, we weigh, we measure everything by weight, grams, pound. So this is the most important process because if you screw up the weighing of the ingredients, then nothing else. I mean, you wouldn't be able to like make the same thing. And the mixing process. So we mix the solid ingredients and liquid ingredients at a certain speed, rotational speed, and that's 60 rotations per minute. And in the mixing process, like we are making like this phenomenon called like agitation granulating process. So each flour grain like gradually comes together like when mixed with the liquid, and it makes like a crumble. Like crumbles gets bigger and bigger. So that's what we're doing like in mixing process. And after that, like we rest it, and then we in the resting process, like it kind of develops the gluten structure inside dough further. So that's why we do the resting process. So mixing and resting, and the rest of the process I'm going to talk about, like when we actually make noodles. So after we make dough, all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness, and then cut it and then portion it. And then after that, like we put the noodles in the container and put in store it in our refrigerator for what we call like third resting process. So the noodles dry and lose moisture, and the texture gets tighter, and the color gets translucent, basically for better noodle texture. Okay, so getting the right noodle texture. So the Shio ramen noodles are typically thin, straight, and lightly curl, and then or like sometimes like they have like some flat noodles. They use some flat noodles. Um, in this class, like we're gonna make this noodle, the solid, uh, the flour A 95% ratio, protein 11.3, ash 0.34%, and we're gonna mix it with whole wheat flour. That's just 5%. And liquid 35%, and inside liquid we have like water 33%, calcium 1%, salt 1% to the weight of flour. And the size of the noodles, the width 1.4 millimeter and thickness 1.2 millimeter. And then this is a straight noodle. So something you have to like consider like when trying to get like right texture for your shio ramen noodle. Like so you need to like match it with the soup. The soup could be like richer, lighter, then you should consider like your noodle texture and then the size of your noodles. I mean, like for your customers' preference, like for your preference, like yeah, you may want to change the size, like texture, and then for example, operational considerations. For example, like if you are making the noodles like for takeout, you want to have like noodles noodle texture like that lasts for a while, like in soup, or like if you are doing like kind of ramen home kit, then where then customers themselves like have to cook the noodles. So then you may want to make it thinner. The cooking time is shorter. And also, you have to think about the size of the noodles. So the size, when talking about size or shape of noodles, like that's width, like thickness. And so this is the cut surface of noodles. And then when you cook the noodles, like when you put the noodles in soup, the soup or water liquid penetrates the noodles like from the side, which is the cut surface. So that's where the thickness is. So when you cook the noodles, then so this shape of noodle like with 1.5 millimeter like thickness, 1.3 millimeter, after it's cooked, the noodle shape becomes like this, like so square with like four dents, four sides like dented, so that these dents pick up the soup, and it has like very good noodle texture. And you could have like also like flat noodles with like bigger width, or like you can make like reverse cut noodles like this, which is typically for irrigated ramen noodles, and width is smaller than thickness, so it has like larger cut surface, and that makes the noodles cook faster and then like absorb the soup faster. So you need to think about like the noodle texture, like the customers would um, experience, like bite into when like you have to like calculate like all these like what kind of ingredients you need to use, like protein level, hydration ratio, and then even size of the noodles, and then whether it's like curly or straight noodles. Before we go, like I just want to touch a bit on like this benefits of like homemade noodles. So if you're a restaurant serving ramen noodles, you have two options: buying noodles or like making noodles. And if you buy noodles, like typically, you may be paying like 50 cents per serving. And but if you're making like noodles, the cost of making noodles like, typically like 20 cents US dollars per serving, like including labor, ingredients, and then and then utility costs. So you're looking at like around like 50 to 60% is saving. It's like basically, so the more you serve and the more you sell, the more you save, the bigger savings. So um, that's a good benefit for homemade noodles. And of course, like you can make like better noodles at lower cost than the buying noodles, and you can have like total control over quality and what you can produce. You can produce like a lot of different types of noodles yourself, and you can provide, because of that a lower cost, right? You can provide like more values. You can pass that saving to your customers, who keep going, coming back to you because of the value. And you can make unique products. You can, because you can have total control over your quality, like what you can produce. Um, you can make unique products like different ingredients that are locally produced and so on. And you can show your customers how you make noodles from scratch. And this is also very important too, because your customers can have like sense of safety over what you're serving. So that's a kind of the benefit like homemade noodles. So that's something you may want to consider. And of course, this is a kind of typical kind of setup of like the space that you need. Like you don't need like a large space to kind of start like kind of small production. Okay. So before we start making Shio Ramen noodles like from scratch, let me just talk a little bit about this. So I kind of like started talking about this like in every class, but like doing this kind of online classes like kind of well, we have no choice, but like it's there are good things and bad things. Like good things is that like we can just do it. Like we can broadcast it like to many people at the time, and then they can watch it like later, like a recording. Like we can like let you guys taste the noodles and what we make during class. So we feel like really bad about it, and but like we want to try make them available to you guys. So if you're interested, especially like if you're living like near the following locations: Singapore, New York, Amsterdam, Holland, and we do also have office in Seoul, Korea. So if you're interested and if you're living like near these locations, please let us know, and we try our best to make them available for you. And if you interested like um, seeing a private demo, please feel free to contact us, and we will try our best to like arrange it for you. And so yes, please let us know. And so let's start making noodles. Okay, so we have the ingredients here. So this is a flour that the flour we talked about. The protein content like 11.3% and ash content of 0.34%. By the way, this is very low ash. And the water like 35% hydration ratio, but like this. So this is basically the water itself is 33%. And currency and salt, 1% each. That's to the weight of flour. And this is 4 kilograms. This is 4 kilograms because the mixture we're gonna make dough in is the minimum batch of that is 4 kilograms. So it's 4 kilograms. So 4 kilograms and then 33% to the 4 kilograms, 1%, 4 kilograms. That's 40 grams, 40 grams each. Okay, let's start making noodles. So this is our kind of starting entry level like noodle making machines called Richmond One machine. This is the all-in-one noodle machine that you can make fresh noodles from scratch. And it's got a mixer, 10 kilograms mixer, and so the minimum batch is 4. Like you can mix up to like 10 kilograms of solid ingredients, and on top of that, you're adding liquid to it. So you can make up to about in serving size maybe like 100 per hour, 100 per hour, 100 servings per hour. And 100 servings in terms of weight, it's about like 13 to like 14 kilograms of noodles. And so she's dissolving the currency and salt to the water. So you got to dissolve like really stir it really well to make sure that they are dissolved in the water thoroughly. So we just mix it about like 1 minute to get some like air into the flour particles, and then like break the chunks of flour to small pieces. And then she's adding then roughly like 2/3 of the liquid first onto the lid, which has like small holes, so that like this liquid like kind of drips through the holes to be added to the flour little by little. Because we're trying to achieve like a really good hydration of dough in this mixing. So we don't want to add all the water like at once, but like little like rough sheet of dough. And this machine has a set of rollers that flattens basically this dough. And so we're basically feeding this dough into these rollers to make a rough sheet of dough. And the roller gap, so you can set the roller gap like kind of freely. And for this dough, this hydration ratio, the roller gap we set is 1.5 millimeter. So the dough is coming out from the other end of the machine, and so it's just like winds automatically by itself, like, and so we just like keep feeding the dough to the rollers to make rough sheet of dough. So this hydration ratio, the level, so we basically like categorize ramen noodles by hydration ratio level, hydration ratio, and so this type of dough noodle is called medium hydration ratio noodles, and which is like basically like between like 31% to 30, like up to like 40%. And 30, for example, like 30% means 30% of the weight of flour. So if you're doing like 10 kilograms of solid ingredients per batch, then you're adding 3 kilograms of liquid to it. So that's what the 30% hydration ratio means. So you're getting 13 kilograms of noodles in this case. And low hydration ratio noodle is basically like hard noodle, and basically hard on thin noodle, and usually that's like less than like between like 25% and to 30%. So for in that kind of dough, the dough size is like a lot smaller. It's even like it's almost like a powder. It's still like a powder, like wet powder. And high hydration ratio noodle is over 40%, and that's usually used for like tsukemen or dipping noodles, like udon or maybe like soba too. So like if you make like high hydration ratio noodles, then the size of those like a lot bigger and then a lot wetter. So she's adding the rest of the liquid and mix it for the rest of the minutes and like 6 minutes. So this is a rough sheet of dough, and the next process we call compounding process. So you're basically like separating this dough into two sheets, and then combining like these two sheets through the rollers. So each sheet is 1.5 millimeter in thickness, supposedly, and so by combining them, the equivalent of 3 millimeter dough sheet is going through the roller, and we don't want to thin it all at once because like that's gonna damage the gluten structure inside dough. So we usually reduce the dough size by 70%, and so 3 millimeter times like 70%, like 2.1 millimeter, and then we're gonna run it off to 2.0 millimeter, just for the to make it simple. And so after you do this combining process, the dough is like firmer and basically stronger. And we are going very, very slow in this rolling process because we want to apply very good pressure, like for the first rounds of sheeting. So this hydration ratio, like though, I mean, the noodles that like belong to this hydration ratio, like a medium hydration ratio, are used for, yes, basically like Shio Ramen noodles and many types of like ramen. Actually, the Shio Ramen noodles, shoyu ramen noodles, and then even like miso ramen as well. But like kind of changing the hydration ratio by like 1%, like 2%, um, change the noodle texture like dramatically. Uh, so the hydration ratio like is very important. Like so it's you need to like adjust it like, um, and then the higher the temperature of the like room where you make noodles, um, the sort of like the more the like more active like the water that you add to the flour is. So it's like in the summer, right? In the summer, like when it's hot, like usually you need to reduce the amount of water to have like same quality of noodles because in the summer, like when it's hot, the water activity is like um, bigger. So you need to like reduce the amount of water to have the same. But like in the winter, like when it's cold, the water activity is less. So you need to increase the amount of water you add to the flour to have the same um, like noodle texture, same yes noodle texture. And then so after first combining, we usually do like one to twice this combining process. Um, and then so this is the second time. And then after that, after the second combining process, like we'll just thin it. And so she started the dusting it to keep it from sticking. And so each the dough, each sheet of dough is 2 millimeter in thickness. So that's compounding, right? So 2 plus 2, 4 millimeter, and applying that rule of 70% rule. So 4 times 0.7, 2.8, rounding off to 3.0. So she set that roller gap to 3 millimeter. And so you have to, well, it's like for this type of, for this hydration ratio, the amount of dusting is about this much. But like if you're making higher hydration ratio noodle, like you have to dust more to prevent it from sticking. So after the combining process, so all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness. Like again, like we can't thin it drastically all at once. So we need to apply this again, like 70% rule. So that was 3 times 0.7, 2.1, rounding off to 2.0. So your mixing is done. So after this, right? I mean, we can go faster because the gluten structure is like complete, and so we can just go faster and roll it, thin it. So that was 2 millimeter, and so next like 2 times zero point 0.7, that's 1.5, and yes, in it. And so the next round, we're cutting it. We're cutting it, and so we want to have this final size. Like, if you guys remember the size of the noodles that we talked about, so that's like 1.4 millimeter in width and then 1.2 millimeter in thickness. So the thickness is determined by the roller gap, and the final thickness, to get the final thickness right, we need to do a bit of a calculation, because the actual thickness of dough is always bigger than the roller gap we set, because the dough is basically bounces back like after it's gone through the rollers, and it's always bigger, right? So we need to measure the thickness to see what the difference is between actual thickness and the roller gap. So that's so the actual thickness is 2.1 millimeter. So there's a difference of like 0.6 millimeter, and then this dough like bounces back like by 0.6. To get to 1.2 millimeter, then we should set the roller gap to like 0.6, so that we expect that thickness to expand back by 0.6, right? So 0.6 plus 0.6, that's 1.2. So then we set the roller gap to 0.6 millimeter. And this is the kind of cutter we use. And so that it's like a kind of paper shredder, and then dough gets inserted between the slitter, and it comes out, noodle strands on the other side. So we set the cutter and then start cutting. So we also set in conveyor. So the portion size, so like really it's up to you, and typically like the Shio Ramen, the serving size may be like around 110 to 100, maybe like up to like maybe 30 grams in like fresh noodles. And so yes, but like it's up to you. So like you can just set your own serving size. And so that's how ramen noodles for Shio Ramen are made from scratch. Okay, so from now, it's about time for us to like move to the kitchen, and before we move to the kitchen, right? I just wanna say that like, so we're doing this kind of like online classes like every week now, and next week we're thinking of doing free online class like on tonkotsu ramen. Tonkotsu is basically pork bone, and the like soup is made of like pork bones. Like it's very usually like rich, dense, and a creamy broth. And it's maybe like one of the maybe like the most popular ramen dish. I guess like overseas for at least. And so we're doing it. But there are many variations of tonkotsu broth. tonkotsu ramen, and like we're just doing like kind of like basic one first, and then we're gonna do like some other kind of new ones later classes. All right, so let's move to the kitchen. So this is the kitchen that we have for our ramen school, udon school, and um, so we can have like up to like 8 students per class because we want to have like one-on-one session so that like each student can make his or her own ramen bowl of ramen and then like sets of recipes and like go home with a complete set of recipes. And so we have all these like induction cookers, and we have like 10 of them, like big ones. And so each of them will be like cooking different ingredients individually, so that each student can taste how each ingredient broth like stock tastes, and so that they know how it tastes, right? So that they can combine them later for their recipes. And of course, like we talked about motodare, and like we are making many different types of motodare, like and like shoyu, of course, salt, shio tare, the miso tare, and of course like flavored oils we talked about a bit, and we're making like yeah, tens of different types of like flavored oil like from scratch. And so we basically teach everything like basics, and we also teach like how to apply like basic principles to make your own unique bowl of ramen. And so that's what we do like our school. And so we hope that like you guys will like join us for the school like someday, hopefully soon. And now we have instructors over there. So Mr. Ikeda is our chief instructor, and he has background in Chinese cuisine, like very similar to ramen, and he has like very big like depth in knowledge and experiences in working with like different students, and so we're lucky to have him here. And then if you have like any questions, please send us like comments, send us like questions or comments, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay. And we have Mr. Takeuchi. You can call him Thomas, and he's from Vancouver, BC, Canada, and he's basically native speaker of English. And so we'd like to have him to teach us some technical side of like Shio Ramen, and he has like 2 sample Shio Ramen dishes today to show you guys. So I'll pass it to Thomas.
Thank you, Akira. Once again, my name is Thomas. I'm one of the instructor at the Yamato Noodle School. And today, the topic is Shio Ramen, so let me talk about Shio Ramen for a bit. So, first of all, what is Shio Ramen? So, Shio Ramen is pretty much ramen seasoned with salt motodare. So, salt motodare, it doesn't have overwhelming seasoning like soy sauce or miso. So the motodare is very simple. So the flavor is, I would say Shio Ramen is very simple and basic. And because the salt motodare is simple, it brings out the flavor of the stock. It amplifies the flavor of the stock. And some people say that you can judge the quality of the ramen shop by having their Shio Ramen, because it doesn't have overwhelming seasoning like soy sauce or miso. You can directly taste the stock, and the stock is one of the most important element of bowl of ramen. So you can judge the quality of the ramen shop by tasting their Shio Ramen. So Shio Ramen is a very important menu in your for your ramen shop. Okay, so next I want to talk about the type of salt. First of all, there's three different types of salt. First one is refined salt. This is pretty much table salt. And table salt is very highly refined. So all the minerals and nutrients are removed, which makes the salt very salty and it doesn't have any other taste other than the saltiness. And the next one is sea salt. And sea salt is made by evaporating seawater. So it retains the minerals and nutrients, which gives like other flavor other than the saltiness, so which makes the salt complex flavor. And the third one, rock salt. For example, pink Himalayan salt. This is an example of a rock salt. And rock salt is extracted from underground salt mine. And because rock salt is very dense and concentrated, it's hard to dissolve and it has a very strong salt taste, which makes it great for seasoning protein. For example, when you're grilling steak, Himalayan salt is perfect. But for ramen, sea salt is like salt to go for because it has other new minerals and nutrients, which makes the flavor more complex. Because salt is very simple, it's not like soy sauce or miso. You want to make it complex tasting as much as possible by using sea salt. And we recommend using few different types of sea salt rather than using one because each type of sea salt has different types of minerals and nutrients. So by blending few different types of sea salt, it's going to make the flavor even more complex and flavorful. Okay. So next I want to talk about the type of Shio Ramen. So there's many different types of Shio Ramen in Japan, and you can break up in the types of Shio Ramen into two groups. One is regional. For example, Hakodate Shio Ramen. This is a region in Hokkaido, and this area is famous for their seafood. So Hakodate Shio Ramen uses a lot of seafood in their ramen. And the second type is stock type. So this type of Shio Ramen differs by the type of stock. For example, Tori Shio Ramen. Tori means chicken, so chicken Shio Ramen. For example, Snapper Shio Ramen, and another type is Clam Shio Ramen, and which is very popular right now in Japan. And also, many people don't know that tonkotsu ramen is Shio Ramen because people think that tonkotsu ramen is a part of one of the flavor. For example, soy sauce, miso, salt, and tonkotsu. People think tonkotsu is one of the flavor, but actually it's just the type of stock, and it's actually flavored with salt motodare. So tonkotsu ramen is actually Shio Ramen. So that's one info about Shio Ramen. And now I want to talk about the 5 elements of Shio Ramen. First, stock. For Shio Ramen, one of the type of stock that can be used is clear or cloudy, so slightly emulsified chicken stock. Or second one, pork stock. And the third one is seafood stock. And seafood stock can be dry seafood stock, for example, dried kelp, dried bonito, or fishbone stock. So, for example, snapper and salmon. After filleting a snapper or salmon, you're going to be left with fishbone, and people make stock out of the fishbone as well. And lastly, clam, which is very popular right now in Japan. Okay, next, flavoring sauce. And for the flavoring sauce is salt motodare, and this makes up the taste of Shio Ramen. In a motodare, there is a whole bunch of ingredients in motodare. It's not just salt. So for example, mirin, sweet rice sake, and a little bit of soy sauce so it doesn't change the color, just a little bit. And also dried ingredients like dry kelp or sardines for the umami. And for the flavored oil, the oil itself, chicken oil, pork fat, vegetable oil is often used. And to flavor those type of oil, garlic, ginger, leek, dry fish powder is often used to flavor the oil. And for the type of noodle, for Shio Ramen, thin, straight, or wavy noodle is often used. It pairs up very nicely with the Shio Ramen stock. And for the toppings, citrus is often used for topping for Shio Ramen. For example, yuzu, lemon, or lime, or it can be anything. It just freshens up the taste of the Shio Ramen. And chashu, soft-boiled egg, bamboo shoot, leek, green onion, seaweed, and bean sprouts is often used for Shio Ramen. Okay. And today, for the example of Shio Ramen, I'm going to make Hakodate Shio Ramen, and I'm going to make Tori Shio Ramen. And I'm going to start off from making the Tori Shio Ramen. Sorry, before getting into the cooking part, I want to talk about our method of ramen making. Our way is a little bit unique because, like I said, in a motodare, whole bunch of ingredients are used to make the motodare, and the recipe is often secret. And what we do is we take each ingredients used for the motodare and we prepare them separately. For example, this soy sauce is prepared with some scallops, which has some scallop umami in this soy sauce. And this one is prepared with shiitake mushrooms. So this soy sauce has some shiitake umami in it. And this salt motodare is prepared with kombu, kelp. So it has kelp umami in this salt motodare. And this is miso motodare. And this is heated mirin. And think of these as a parts of motodare. And what the students will do is that they take these parts of this motodare and blend them up into their own preference. And what they do is that while they're blending the motodare, they measure how much of each part of motodare they put in. So once the bowl of ramen is complete, they're going to have their own original recipe. And we do this, we use this method because it allows a student to make their own original taste. And also, not just learning one type of ramen, you learn how to blend all these parts of motodare so you can make any type of ramen. Okay? And same goes for the flavored oil as well. This one is garlic oil. And this one is chicken oil, chili oil, and this is black garlic oil, often used for tonkotsu ramen. And these are also parts for flavored oil, so the students blend these flavored oil together to make their own original blend. So that's how we make our ramen. And if you're interested in how to make these motodare or flavored oil, please consider a ramen school. But for people that can't come to a ramen school at the moment, we have these textbooks. We use these textbooks at our ramen school and talks about how to make the stock, motodare, and flavored oil, and some toppings as well. And if you're interested in these textbooks, please contact us through our website. And yeah, we will reply to your message. So let's get going to the cooking part. I'm going to start off with the tori shio ramen, so chicken shio ramen. Okay. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to heat up this stock. This stock is a mixture of chicken stock and fish stock. So let's heat this up. Okay. And next, so this is salt motodare. Okay. And this is a mixture of all those parts of motodare over there. Okay. So this is pre-blended. So I'm just going to take 1 scoop and put it into the bowl. And this is a chicken oil based flavored oil. And I'm going to take 1 scoop of this flavored oil as well. And for the noodles, we're going to use this thin, straight noodles, which has some whole wheat in it. You can see some whole wheat in these noodles. Okay. And we're going to boil these noodles in this rapidly boiling water for 40 seconds. Okay. And after putting in the noodles, make sure to mix for 5 or 10 seconds. Okay. While the noodles are cooking, I'm going to pour in the stock into the bowl. So I'm going to take 1 full scoop of this fish and chicken stock and into the bowl. And the noodles should be ready soon. Okay. And make sure to strain out this water completely. This is going to dilute the soup. Right. And I'm going to put the noodles into the soup and want to line up the noodles nicely. And for the toppings, we have chicken chashu, and for the toppings, we have chicken chashu. And I wrapped them up so it's nice and round. Chicken thigh chashu. I'm just going to place it in the front. And next, menma, bamboo shoots in the back, and soft-boiled egg on the back as well. And this is mizuna leaves in the back. In the middle, I'm going to put some thinly sliced leek in the middle. And mitsuba leaf on top for the green. And also some yuzu skin on top. It's going to give a nice fresh aroma to the ramen, yuzu, and it can be lime or it can be lemon as well. So that's how to make tori shio ramen. Okay, next I'm going to make hakodate seafood shio ramen. So first thing I want to do is I have clam, prawn, scallop, and squid. So I'm going to cook these seafood in the stock for a little bit, just a little bit. I don't want to overcook them, but I just want to extract a little bit of the seafood umami into the stock. Okay, and next, motodare and flavored oil. I'm going to use the same motodare. Salt-based motodare, 1 scoop. And for the flavored oil, this is a lard. This is a pork fat-based flavored oil. So I'm just going to take 1 scoop of this. And for this Hakodate Shio Ramen, I'm going to use this thin, wavy noodles. And I'm going to cook these for 1 minute. And make sure to mix for the first 5 or 10 seconds. Okay, the stock is boiling, so I'm gonna pour in the stock into the bowl. I'm gonna leave the toppings in the pot. Okay, the noodles are ready. The boiling time was 1 minute. Make sure to strain out the water completely. Okay, and into the bowl. And I'm going to line up the noodles. And for the toppings, I have sous vide chicken chashu, prawn, squid, scallops, and some clam. And it goes really well with wakame, seaweed. So I'm going to put some wakame and bamboo shoots. And of course, soft-boiled egg. And lastly, thinly sliced leek. And also, so this is how to prepare your Hakodate Shio Ramen. Okay, so we have some questions. First one, so is high protein flour low in viscosity and low protein flour high in viscosity? It doesn't necessarily mean the amount of protein doesn't relate with how the viscosity of the flour. So there are high viscosity flour with high protein content, and there are also low viscosity flour with low protein content. Okay, next one. Water for kansi mixed is room temperature or fridge temperature? I recommend using room temperature because cold kansi water, it's gonna make the dough a little bit too dry. And when you use hot kansi water, it's gonna make the dough a little bit too sticky. So room temperature is the best. Around 20 degrees, plus or minus 5 degrees should be good. Okay, so that's about it. So that's about it from my side. So I'm going to pass it back to Akira.
Thank you very much, Thomas. That was very good. So this is the first class that we did on like Shio Ramen. So the previous two classes we did like miso ramen and shoyu ramen and Shio Ramen. This is so these are the basic three types of ramen that you know as this will be cover the basic. And but like in next class, we're doing like September 3rd, we're doing a class on tonkotsu. Tonkotsu is basically, you know, any type of ramen that's has the soup that's made of like pork bones. And so, you know, this is also, but like these are basic types. Like there are many variations like tonkotsu ramen, but like you're gonna do the basic type first. And then, so that's the next, that's what this class could be. And for those of you like who haven't signed up, please sign up from our website. And like for those who have signed up for this class, we're gonna send out like a survey, and it's gonna take like just a few minutes to like fill out, and then like just you know, we're gonna be asking some questions like, you know, what kind of subject that you want to learn, you know, what kind of like things like you want to see in the next class. So you know, this is something that you know we're interested in knowing, so that you know we can do this class on like something that's suited, you know, more suited to your preference, like you know your interest. So please just take a few minutes to take your survey, fill out the questions, and so thank you guys so much for watching this class, and we'll hope to see you guys in the next class. So thank you for joining us. Thank you. Bye bye.
キズナはとても不向きですよ。
難しかった。
というと、ここに映っているものは全部優秀